Iowa Interstate is a Class II freight railroad running through central Illinois and Iowa. Their main line travels from the Chicago area over trackage rights to Utica, Illinois, then west through the Quad Cities, Iowa City, and Des Moines, ending in Council Bluffs, Iowa. Years ago, this was once an important line operated by the famous Chicago, Rock Island and Pacific. When the Rock Island declared bankruptcy in 1980, their tracks were sold and acquired by many different railroads. Several attempts to revive service on the east-west main line ultimately ended in failure, and at the start of Iowa Interstate service in 1984, it looked like it too would be another failed venture. However, by the 1990s, restructuring of the railroad's ownership provided extra capital to improve its track and provide better service to its customers. In the early 2000s, Railroad Development Corporation, a part owner of the railroad since 1991, exercised its option to purchase the railroad outright and completed the process in 2004. By this time, the money RDC invested into Iowa Interstate's overhaul had transformed it into a competitive regional railroad, and today is regarded as one of the Midwest's best freight carriers. This video features some special operations along the Iowa Interstate in 2021 and 22, as well as some freight trains on the main line through the eastern half of Iowa between Des Moines and Davenport. While Iowa Interstate's business is freight service, the railroad has become known for its excursions and special trains that have operated over the past 15 years. Many of these have been fundraisers benefiting local fire departments and first responders in communities served by Iowa Interstate. And most have been pulled by the railroad's QJ steam locomotives, arriving from China in 2006 after the Chinese railways discontinued most of their steam operations. The QJs had a huge presence in their home country, with over 4,000 engines produced from the 1950s through the 80s. Iowa Interstate's QJs, 6988 and 7081, represent the later production from the 1980s, making them some of the most modern steam engines ever produced. After arriving in America, the two engines were owned by the Iowa Interstate's parent, Railroad Development Corporation, for use during fundraising excursions and other events on the line. In 2014, ownership was transferred to the Central States Steam Preservation Association, a nonprofit group formed to preserve and maintain the locomotives for the future. With the help of volunteers and donations and Iowa Interstate's continued blessing, QJ 6988 returned to the excursion scene in 2018 and 2019, traveling across the railroad in Iowa and Illinois. Fast approaching was 6988's mandatory boiler inspection and overhaul required every 15 years. It was expected that 2020 would probably be the final year of operation for the engine for quite some time. But then came the COVID-19 pandemic, and any plans of excursions in this year were understandably put on hold. Thankfully, due to the circumstances of the engine not operating, Central States Steam and Iowa Interstate obtained an FRA extension to the locomotive's required overhaul date, allowing it to run one more year in 2021. The beginning of this program features a selection of these trains operating in late summer. We begin in eastern Iowa, with 6988 operating a series of excursions out of Wilton on August 22, 2021. Each excursion lasted for about an hour round trip, with trains running east from Wilton towards Walcott. 6988 pulls the train east, with GP 38-2 Diesel 700 on the other end to pull west. Passengers could ride in one of 5 P70 coaches acquired by Iowa Interstate from the Austin Steam Train Association in 2016. In 2020, they were completely repainted in bright maroon colors, reminiscent of the livery these cars originally wore with the Pennsylvania Railroad. Also in today's consist are Iowa Interstate's 2 business cars, Hawkeye and Abraham Lincoln. Let's get right to the action, as the first train is underway after 9 a.m., with 6988 approaching Durant, approximately halfway along today's excursion route. On the other side of Durant, we see the train returning with 700 in the lead. In Wilton, the train is staged in front of the old Rock Island Depot near downtown, where passengers board each excursion. Of course, the QJ makes for a great photo op before and after each ride. For those remaining in Wilton wanting pictures of the train, the crew of 6988 back west a little ways before beginning each excursion with a dramatic photo run-by. We'll stay here as the 10:30 train starts its journey. Back in Wilton, the train returns to the station and prepares for the next excursion, departing at noon. We move back east again to see it pass, with 6988 thundering through downtown Durant. The last excursion of the day departs at 1:30 and makes its way through Stockton, east of Durant. A nearby defect detector reports hot boxes in the consist, which would normally be a dangerous situation where a wheel bearing on the train runs hot. In reality, this time there's nothing to worry about. The wheels and axles underneath the hot boiler and firebox of a working steam engine can sometimes throw off a detector into thinking that there's a hot box when there really isn't. Such is the case now, as the defect detector will report a hot box on axle 4, which is attached to two of 6988's driving wheels underneath the boiler. With regular inspections of steam engines during excursions such as this, these type of alarms are typically disregarded.
Iowa Interstate, milepost 199.1, first hotbox north rail axle 4, second hotbox south rail axle 4, total axle 5.2, temperature 79.
For those getting off the final excursion out of Wilton, the train will make one more photo run-by before it prepares to head west back towards Newton. After a successful series of excursions and plenty of money raised for Wilton's fire department, 6988 and its train begin the trek back towards their home base in Newton. Due to the train running west, Diesel's 700 will lead the entire way. We caught the train 2 times, first outside West Liberty. In Iowa City, the railroad tracks cross high over the Iowa River near downtown. Here we leave today's action as our train continues west to the yards in South Amana for the night. The following day, 6988 would pull a freight train to complete its run back to Newton. Then, in just a couple of weeks, the engine would be back out again for another series of trips on Iowa Interstate. On Labor Day weekend 2021, 6988 left Newton to operate another series of excursions. These trains were run in conjunction with the Science Center of Iowa, departing from their campus in Des Moines, which just happens to be directly south of the old Rock Island train station. The station, opened in 1901, served passengers of the Rock Island until the last train departed in May of 1970. Renovated in the 80s, it's now used for downtown office space, with restaurants occupying the secondary building across 4th Street. The QJ is facing west to pull the trains out of Des Moines, with GP38-2 Diesel 702 bringing the trains back. Each excursion would run about 30 minutes worth of track westbound towards Boonville before returning to downtown. In contrast to most Iowa Interstate excursions held in rural areas, this time, rail fans had the opportunity to document 6988 passing through a modern, urban setting in Iowa's capital. We jump in on the action as the second day of excursions is underway on September 6, 2021. This location is near Valley Junction, where other railroad tracks owned by Union Pacific head northwest into Walcott, remnants of a branch line that once continued on towards Perry, Iowa. At this point on the Iowa Interstate, the engineer of 6988 can finally open up the throttle as the 1030 excursion train makes its way out of the Des Moines Metro. .702 returns the consist east, stopping traffic on Highway 28. Back in downtown, 6988 is ready to pull the next excursion west, departing at noon. From this vantage point on 12th Street, We see the train with the Des Moines cityscape as a backdrop. At 6th Avenue, near the heart of downtown Des Moines, we see the train stop at the Rock Island Station as it prepares for the final trip west at 1:30. Across the Iowa Interstate tracks from where we are standing is the Dart Central Station, the major transfer point for Des Moines city buses. Arriving one last time into downtown, 6988 has completed yet another successful series of steam excursions on the Iowa Interstate. With 702 facing east, the diesel will continue to pull the train as they depart for Newton after the passengers get off. We walk a couple blocks from the Rock Island station to see the train as it begins the eastbound trip, crossing the Des Moines River, with Iowa's Capitol building providing a beautiful backdrop as the train travels away. With its mandatory boiler overhaul date rapidly approaching, 6988 would make a few more short runs out of Newton later in October 2021 to use up all remaining coal in its tender. At this point, it seemed as if the QJ had closed a major chapter of its time in America, and it would be a while before any steam would return to the Iowa Interstate. But as fate would have it, this would not be the case. In January 2022, the railroad preservation world took notice as the Friends of 261 group, responsible for maintaining Milwaukee Road 484 steam locomotive 261 and related equipment, rebranded as Railroading Heritage of Midwest America and announced their purchase of the old Rock Island shop facility in Silvis, Illinois. This large complex was, until recently, operated as a location of National Railway equipment for maintenance of their locomotive lease fleet and overhaul work for various railroads. The main building features over 400,000 square feet of indoor shop space, with overhead cranes to perform heavy maintenance of locomotives and other rail equipment. For a facility of this magnitude to fall into the hands of a preservation group meant the opening of countless doors for historical rail refurbishment projects. Railroading Heritage of Midwest America later announced it would be receiving a large donation of sidelined equipment by Union Pacific that the organization plans to restore at Silvis to operating condition. BNSF has also donated equipment of historical significance to be operated and maintained by the group. Suffice to say, there will be a lot of exciting developments coming out of Silvis in the years ahead, and there couldn't be a more perfect location for QJ 6988 to receive its overhaul. In late spring, it was announced that 6988 would be making the journey to the Silvis shops, where Central States Steam would perform its mandatory FRA boiler inspection and repair work over the next several years. Getting there turned out to be a huge surprise. Instead of being towed by another locomotive, Central States Steam and Iowa Interstate obtained another FRA waiver to allow the engine to operate under its own power to Silvis. On June 11, 2022, 6988 started out on what would truly be its last run under steam for quite some time. We were fortunate to see this special movement passing a few locations east of Newton, starting out in Grinnell at the historic Diamond Crossing with Union Pacific's Oskaloosa subdivision, the former Minneapolis and St. Louis main line. The QJ is pulling 2 of Iowa Interstate's excursion coaches, along with a shortcut of freight cars with GP 38-2 710 on the rear. Ending our chase, we are in downtown Iowa City at the old train station built in 1898. This station was used by the Rock Island for passenger service until 1970. Today, it's privately owned for business space. $69.88 would continue east to Silvis and would make a round-trip run to Bureau, Illinois to turn around on June 12th, before arriving at the Silvis shops. With the passage of the train here in Iowa City comes the end of our first chapter of QJ action on the Iowa Interstate that has spanned the past 14 years. 6988 meets freight train BICB in the Iowa City yard. This is Iowa Interstate's mainline westbound train running from its yard in Blue Island, Illinois, all the way to Council Bluffs. An added bonus on today's train is the railroad's Rock Island Heritage locomotive 513 in the lead, and how fitting to see it pass the historic Rock Island station. Even though the QJ steam action has ended for the time being, there was still one more exciting and unique train that operated across the Iowa Interstate in autumn 2022, when the last batch of Railroading Heritage of Midwest America's donated Union Pacific equipment was on its way from UP steam shops in Cheyenne, Wyoming. While some of the donated cars were already delivered to Silvis earlier in the year, this train, dubbed the UP Donation Special, would be much more significant since it would feature all of the donated locomotives that will be making the journey east. And what a lineup it is! Featured in the consist are former stars of the preserved UP fleet, including 4664 Challenger steam locomotive 3985 and DDA-40X Centennial Diesel 6936. Also included is locomotive 5511, a 210-2 steam engine, and E9B number 670, a former Amtrak unit converted to a steam heater car. 3 UP passenger cars and a caboose complete the set of donated equipment in the special's consist. The donation special made a slow and tumultuous journey across Wyoming and Nebraska as it made its way towards Iowa. Crew shortages and the obvious prioritization of other trains meant that a lot of its trip to this point happened after dark. The original plan called for the special to continue on UP rails from Council Bluffs to Des Moines via its mainline Boone, Clinton, and Mason City subdivisions. But continued difficulties finding available crews changed this plan to a complete run on the Iowa Interstate all the way across to Silvis. On November 18, 2022, the train departed Council Bluffs and would lay over in the South Amana yards for the night. Due to its slow speeds, only the segment west of Des Moines was in daylight. The next day, November 19th, high winds made temperatures brutally cold, but this didn't discourage rail fans from all over the Midwest to come see the donation special running the final miles to its destination, and we were no exception. The day begins east of South Amana at the Yocum connection, where the Cedar Rapids and Iowa City Railway's branch line from Cedar Rapids joins the Iowa Interstate main. Here we see our first look at the donation special as it departs South Amana shortly before 9 a.m. The extra UP diesel and long cut of freight cars on the end of the train are used for additional braking purposes, as most of the donated equipment's air brakes are inoperable and are bypassed. Arriving in Iowa City, fans gather along the frigid Iowa River as the train crosses overhead with the wind blowing hard. East of here is the Iowa City Depot, where we saw 6988 and his train several months earlier. The railroad tracks you can see in the background is part of the Cedar Rapids and Iowa City's original route towards Cedar Rapids, and is still in use for switching around Iowa City, with the remainder of the line used for car storage. All through traffic on the Crandic to Cedar Rapids utilizes the Yocum connection with Iowa Interstate in South Amana. The donation special pauses in the Iowa City yard, and with its passage, freight train BICB gets the go-ahead to pull out of the yard and continue west. We decide to take a break from chasing the special and backtrack to Coralville to see BICB passing along U.S. Highway 6, near Iowa Interstate's Vernon siding. This was the former location of the west boarding area of the Hawkeye Express, a train that shuttled passengers to the University of Iowa's football games at Kinnick Stadium. The train was discontinued prior to the 2021 season due to concerns over raised operating costs and restrictions surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. donation special's slow speeds allow us plenty of time to catch up, and we intercept the train as it makes another stop outside Atalissa, Iowa. By the time the train continues east, the weather has made a dramatic change, with sunny skies giving way to clouds, and west of Moscow, we soon find ourselves in the middle of a snow squall, creating an instant winter wonderland. Almost like it never happened, by the time we reach our next location in Durant, the snow has ended and partial sunshine returns. Clearing Walcott, the donation special approaches the Quad Cities, and its long journey from Wyoming is almost over. In downtown Davenport, we're along the Mississippi River facing the Government Bridge, built in 1896, where the Iowa Interstate's tracks cross the river to reach Illinois. The bridge also features a roadway on its lower deck, allowing motorists to hopscotch across Arsenal Island to the city of Rock Island. The train will slowly cross the river as the UP steam crew observe the Challenger and Centennial locomotives to make sure they'll clear nearby rail cars on a siding and the sides of the bridge upon approach. long locomotives in the donation special have successfully passed the close clearances along the government bridge, and from this point on, it's a smooth ride into Illinois with only 10 miles remaining before its destination in Silvis. The train made a triumphant arrival at the shops, with many rail fans inside the building as the UP steam engines were brought into the facility, marking the beginning of an exciting restoration process. Since their arrival, Railroading Heritage of Midwest America has made significant progress on Challenger 3985 and has also started work on 5511. It's expected 3985's restoration will be complete in the next few years. In mid-2023, Centennial Diesel 6936 returned to operation after some repair work and has assisted in moving equipment around the shop complex. Things are just heating up at Silvis, and we can't wait to see what the near future holds as the group continues working on bringing these historic trains back to life. With the donation special on its way to a safe arrival in Silvis, we begin to head home, but not before one more train passes us in Davenport on the Iowa Interstate. After the donation special clears the yard in Rock Island, Iowa Interstate's Rock Island Switcher runs across the government bridge heading west. This switching job serves industries in Rock Island and nearby Milan, and also interchanges cars with BNSF and Canadian Pacific. Seeing the train as it comes off the government bridge approach in Davenport, it's on its way to the CP West Davenport yard for switching. We've seen quite a variety of action over the past couple years on Iowa Interstate's main line. Although excursion trains pulled by the QJs have ended for a while, a new chapter of steam and specials is on the horizon, with the possibility of Railroading Heritage of Midwest America's restored locomotives plying the rails around the Quad Cities. There's a lot to look forward to in the years ahead. This is Bobby Harvey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for another journey across the Iowa Interstate.